Welcome to Café of Delights, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gale West. We are at the precipice of one of the most exciting evolutions in human history, from science to spirituality, culture, arts, cutting-edge psychotherapies, new economies, and more. We will explore how to create a world where all can thrive. In a series of riveting interviews, you'll have the opportunity to hear from those that are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. Join me, your host and author of the book, Money Come Dance With Me, Gale West, to be inspired, delighted, and filled with hope for a new reality. Café of Delights starts now. Welcome to the Café of Delights. I'm your host, Gale West, and I'm so excited to have Martin Rutte as our guest today. And Martin is an international speaker and management consultant. He's President of Livelihood Consulting with offices in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Canada, and Ranchos de Taos, New Mexico. Martin has worked with such organizations as the World Bank, Sony Pictures Entertainment, California Edison, Virgin Records, and many, many more, helping them expand their outlook and position themselves for the future. Martin's newest book is Project Heaven on Earth, the 3 simple questions that will help you change the world easily. He helps you discover what heaven on earth is for you and what simple, easy, concrete action you can take in the next 24 hours to begin making that real. He has presented workshops and given talks on heaven on earth in the US, Canada, England, Germany, Mexico, Spain, Sweden, Costa Rica, and many, many more. Welcome, Martin Rutte. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Gale. A pleasure to be with you.
Yes. So I ask everyone the same 2 questions. And the first one is, what brings you delight? Since it is the Café of Delights.
I heard the question and it always brings me delight. My first taste of real raspberries, locally grown raspberries every year. And that's because when I grew up in Canada, raspberries were only around 2 or 3 weeks maximum per year. So to this day, I hoard them. I'll share anything with you, but raspberries, I'll do it, but I don't like that. So fresh raspberries.
Oh, wow. That's I can just taste them as you describe them. And the other question is, what brings you hope at this time in the world?
I don't know when people will be watching this, but we are doing this Monday, March 13th. And last night was the Academy Awards, which for the last several years, all right. But last night really got to me, and got to me in the sense of, these are the kinds of messages that I want to see in the world. Messages of hope, messages of go for your dreams. Don't listen to people who are naysayers who say you'll never amount to anything. There was a lot of Jamie Lee Curtis's speech about we was so powerful for me. So because I think we is the new phase of humanity's evolution. And so it was just, and the joy, the man with the glasses whose name I've forgotten from Everything Everywhere, who won Best Supporting Actor, was just his joy. I mean, he was jumping off the ceiling, and then the Indian song that won, first time an Indian song been nominated and won. So I said to my wife last night, I want more of these events to be seen by our world, to give us nourishment for the soul, nourishment for the spirit, for our hearts. So that gave me a lot of hope last night.
And I think what you're talking about is the recognition that we're all in this together.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we did a little bio on yourself, on your background. Do you want to expand on that? And then how and why did you begin exploring this idea of heaven on earth, which is kind of like an amazing idea?
An idea whose time has come to pair.
Yes, totally.
I did a lot of work on spirituality and work, beginning in the late 80s, I think, mid 80s. And at the time, everybody said, you're crazy. But I thought that this conversation not a proselytizing or a imposing conversation about spirituality work. I thought that was a really important conversation to have in the world of business, because I think business is such a temporal power in the world. And I remember doing a talk, just getting ready to do a keynote address at a conference on spirituality and business in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I was sitting in the green room, just meditating, getting ready. And I had this thought process. If every business in the world is spiritual, is that what you want? And I said, no, because if we could make every business spiritual, whatever that means for the moment, we would transform business. And then I thought, but wait a minute, that's not enough. If we could transform business, we could transform the world. And then, Gale, this thought popped into my mind, oh, you mean heaven on earth? And I went, whoa, you can't say that. My language was a little more colorful. You can't say that. And then I began to think, well, wait a minute. Can I talk to you about hells on earth? Can I talk to you about the war and the economic uncertainty and the polarization in the world and the economy, the environment, the God forbid threat of nuclear war? All of those hell talks are permissible conversation. But heaven on earth, what I want for my life, my work, my relationships, my nation, and my world, that's not permissible conversation. I thought, but that doesn't make any sense. And so that began this inquiry into, well, what is heaven on earth? And how do we bring that about in the world?
You know, that's a really interesting idea, because you're right. I just interviewed Jonathan Salk, who wrote the book A New Reality, and he talks about how we're in this shifting from an old paradigm to a new paradigm. And when that happens, there's all this disruption, there's all this chaos. And what you're talking about is we focus a lot on the chaos, but we don't typically focus on what we really want. So what is and where is heaven? So
Well,
it's out there somewhere in the ethers or up in the sky or whatever.
Or to add to your statement, after death.
Yeah, totally, after death. And hopefully you'll get there and not hell.
Right. But notice that the assumption underneath the conversation about heaven is not here, not now. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, well, it's fine if it's upstairs, great. But what about here? Because if the premise is this is not heaven and it can never be heaven, then all the hells on earth are permissible. And I refuse to believe that. I refuse to put up with it. I refuse to see children, killed, buildings destroyed. I mean, the Ukraine thing is making me crazy. The Israeli-Palestinian thing, unnecessary, stupid, ongoing sufferings. Not necessary. We need to clean this world up and make it work. And I realize it's a bold statement, but I think it's time to be bold. And is it Dr. Salk or Mr. Salk, the conversation that you had? I think he's right in terms of going from one paradigm to another. I would add to it, 10, 15 years ago, Gale, we heard this language. The current story is not working. The current story is not working. We need a new story. We need a new story. But nobody named the new story. And so after a while, we stopped hearing that language. And of course, it's because, let's say you and I have this relationship and it's not working. And I keep saying to you, Gale, we need a new story for our relationship. We need a new story. We need it, but neither of us name the new story. Then it just becomes a source of frustration. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying, what if we name the new story? We're co-creating heaven on earth. That is exactly what I meant. And people said, well, you can't say the word heaven because people will think you're proselytizing. But let me go back to my original story. So what happened after I got this idea, this thought popped into my mind, heaven on earth. I thought, I have no idea what that is. I honest to God, I had no idea what I was talking about. All I knew was when I heard the phrase, this is the next phase of my life. It was clear as a bell to me. So I began going around to people. What's heaven on earth? What's heaven on earth? What's heaven on earth? I was not coming in with a preconditioned answer because I literally did not have one I wanted to do this inquiry to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people so I could kind of get the lay of the land. And what I discovered was what I call my 3 heaven on earth questions. Now, we didn't discuss this before the interview, but are you willing for me to ask you the 3 questions?
Well, let's kind of walk through a little bit more, because I'm
Sure.
really curious. Like my mother, you're talking about heaven and the idea that everybody talks about the trauma that's going on and they focus on that, but there's a lot of people that have this belief system, and my mother was one of them. Life is a veil of tears. Life is a veil of tears. Like, how, when you have that belief system, how are you going to go from, oh, heaven on earth is possible?
Very good. So 2 things. One is one of the things that I've discovered is one of the fundamental beliefs underpinning this is not heaven on earth and this can never be heaven on earth is the belief that we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, out of heaven on earth, out of paradise, and it's a one-way street out forever. And I'm wanting to challenge that notion as well, in the sense that, but that no longer serves us. We've got some very serious collective problems, environment, threat of nuclear weapons, and so on, that I mentioned earlier, that have to be addressed, that we have to address. And that has to be within this new story called Heaven on Earth. So the 3 questions, I mean, if you don't want to answer, that's fine, but let me just ask them. And
Well,
so
I will, but this kind of idea that that we've been cursed. Basically, what we're saying is we've been cursed because the I don't know how many centuries ago, many, this Adam and Eve, Eve ate the apple, and Adam, so this idea, we've been kicked out of the Garden of Paradise, and it's about suffering. But then one would think that is the curse. Have we sufficiently shifted the curse? Is there actually, were we actually cursed?
well,
So
okay.
that's what we're talking about.
First of all, it's not a curse in my belief. Secondly, I'm a Jew, and Jews don't have the belief that it was original sin. We were kicked out and can never go back in. But
That's handy. That's very handy.
Very handy. So I began to investigate this. Genesis 3:23 and 3:24, I think. But the notion of when God discovered Adam and Eve had eaten from the tree and he kicked them out. Okay, fine. So I phoned an Orthodox rabbi and I said, after we were kicked out, does it say anywhere in the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, that we can't go back in again? And he says, no, it doesn't. I'm like, whoa. And then I said, well, what are the verbs? Because they're 2 different verbs. One is they were kicked out and one is they were sent out. So I investigated the linguistic origin of those words. One is Vigaresh, to send out. And in Hebrew, so I asked the rabbi, does Vigaresh mean one way? And he said, no, it is definitely not one way. And I'm like, whoa. And Vayishlach means to be sent out with a mission. My interpretation is our mission is to create this as paradise. Isn't that a much better story than having to put up with, quote, the curse of sin forever? So to begin to move that, and you used a very powerful word, Gale, you said the possibility. The 3 questions are designed to move your thinking from it's impossible, it can never happen, to, oh my God, it is possible, and I can do something about it. That's the key here.
Okay, let's try the 3 questions.
All
I
right.
love that. One of the things I want to say is that in the Baha'i writings, they consider Adam to be one of the first prophets.
Yes.
And that what he brought was an understanding of good and evil, and knowingness of what is good and what is not good. So if we think about that, it's not a curse. It's like an understanding of the polarity that we live in, night and day, cold and warm. That's a really big difference than we've been cursed. And I love what you're talking about is that we've been sent out on a mission, and maybe our mission is to discover how we can get back.
Now, if you recall in the rest of the Genesis, guarding the gate, I didn't plan to go into so much detail, but I really did study this because I was fascinated by it.
Yeah, I think it's important to go through this because a lot of people have this belief.
Yes. So guarding the gate, if you recall, are two cherubs, angels, and above a flaming twisting sword. So I was reading this commentator on the Torah who said, the angels are guarding the gate of return. Fine. What does that mean? Well, let's say that you're wanting to come into my house and I'm outside guarding the gate to entry, meaning you cannot come into my house. He said, yes, that is one interpretation of that phrase. Another interpretation is that the angels are guarding the existence of the gate, so that when humanity is ready to return, the gate is still there. I went, whoa.
Oh, I love it. That's so cool.
The second one was the flaming twisting sword. So I speak to another rabbi and I say, what's that about? And he said, well, suppose you're going to go to a gate and there's a flaming twisting sword. What would you do? I said, well, I wouldn't go in. He said, of course not, because you'd be killed, right? You'd be chopped up and burned. But he said, if you think about it from the Buddhist, if you approach it from your mind, you won't go in. If you approach it from your soul and trust in God and trust in divinity, you'll just walk through and nothing will happen. So those four things, we're sent out, it's not one way. We're sent out with a mission to create heaven on earth here now. The angels are not guarding the gate to prevent entry. They're guarding it so you can come back in. And the sword is just a test. Are you going to enter from your mind, from your ego, or are you going to enter from your soul? If you enter from your soul, you're back in again. Very powerful shifting of what it means, reinterpretation of that very powerful myth, which informs who was first, Judaism, then Christianity, and then Islam, which compose more, like 51% of the total population of the world. So more than half the world believes in that myth. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. It's that powerful.
And story and the stories we tell and the narratives we have guide our lives. And so what you're saying is we need to change the story.
And we can change the story.
And we can change the story. And I want to say that it's not just the soul, but I think, the soul is that which is beyond human. But the heart is that place of humanness, that place of connection, that place of love that brings us. And it's my sense is that what we're talking about is coming in through the heart instead of the mind.
I don't care which way. I care that we go back in.
That we go back in. Yeah, right. So it's cool. Well, we're going to take a break in a minute. And so when we come back, you're going to question me on my three questions, I'm excited.
But because the three questions will show you the movement from it's totally impossible to, oh, I can actually do this. And we can do this, both.
And I do believe it is possible. And this is why we're talking, and this is why all of the new paradigm is about a place where we can have heaven on earth and where all can thrive. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm very excited. We're going to move forward on what are the three questions and how can you ask yourself the three questions. And we're back on the Café of Delights. I'm your host, Gale West, and I have my guest, Martin Rutte, who wrote the book, Project Heaven on Earth, the 3 simple questions that will help you change the world easily. And we've been talking about the narrative of hell on earth and how so many people believe that we've been cursed. And he went into helping us really change the narrative of what is possible. And so now we're going to go into the 3 questions, which Martin has promised to ask me, so being on the spot. And Martin, take it away.
Thank you, Gail. So let me just reiterate. When this insight came to me that it's about heaven on earth, and I didn't know what that meant, and I'm not a big reader, I'm a big interactor, so I started to ask people over and over and over, hundreds of times, what's heaven on earth? And from that inquiry, I started to distill these 3 questions. So I'm going to say them very slowly, so you watching or listening, please answer them. Okay, question 1. Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on?
For me, I was in China, and I was walking to my class, and I was thinking, oh my God, I am so happy. Everything I just love. I love where I'm living. I love what I'm doing. I love teaching. I was living on the campus of an agricultural college, of all things, but there were mountains and trees, and it was really beautiful. And that to me, and I remember calling my friend and going, Lily, I'm really happy. She goes, I know. I said, you don't understand. I am really, really happy. And in that moment, I was so happy. So that to me was heaven on earth.
Very clear. All right, second question. Imagine you have a magic wand, and with this wand, if you have a pen or pencil by your side, just pick it up. Imagine you have a magic wand, and with this magic wand, simply by waving it, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth?
Living in a place that is beautiful, which I actually have now. I'm living in California. Doing work that really delights my soul and my heart, and being of service in a way that is really profound. And one of the things that is I'm really passionate about is creating a world where all can thrive. Whatever I can do to do that, that's to me is heaven on earth.
Very clear. And then the third question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to move that forward, to have more of that?
I think to really sit down and look at my own narratives about what is possible, and create really clear intentions and action steps to make that a possibility.
I'm just writing here so I can feed it back to you. Okay. Let's go over the questions one by one. Question 1, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on? What you did was you answered the question very beautifully. I mean, I could see it. I was there. When I was in China teaching, walking, looking at the mountains, calling my friend Lily and saying, no, I'm not happy. I'm happy.
I actually did that.
I believe you. Yeah. Here's what's interesting. Do you notice that nowhere in this conversation have I defined what I mean by heaven on earth? I've not said what it is. And yet, when I asked you that question, recall a time you experienced heaven on earth, you did what like 99% of the people do, which is you answered the question, your time in China. But Gale, I never said what it was. How do you know what I'm talking about? And that was the first really major insight, which was, within you, there's something called an already knowing about heaven on earth. because if it wasn't there, you wouldn't be able to answer the question as easily as you did. I asked you the question, recall a time, bang, China, just like that. It happens all the time, giving birth to my child, having a wonderful meal, walking with my beloved in the fort, whatever. But people know a time or times when they've experienced heaven on earth. So that's question one.
But so let's stop for a moment. So I
Sure.
think, so we have the title of my show, which is Café of Delights. But if I think about it, it's a moment of delight, a moment when people feel delight. And if you think about the word delight, it means the light.
I do. I did. The moment you said it, yeah.
Yeah, delight. And so, so many people don't have a sense of that as a possibility, but you were talking about a moment of delight where you really felt joy.
And that's so vitally important, I think.
Yes.
Second question, here's a magic wand, and with it, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth? The reason I use the magic wand is because most people think they have to know how they're going to do something in order to be able to do it. Well, I want to remove that necessity by having the magic wand do it. Everybody knows what a magic wand does. You just wave it and it creates, but it creates what you want. You have to say what that is. The magic wand removes the necessity of having to know how. And so then what you're left with is the fullness of the what. And for you, it was a place that's beautiful, doing work that delights my soul and heart, being of profound service so that all can thrive. You know what heaven on earth is. Imagine a room of 200 or 300 people or a webinar of 300 people speaking about what this is. It's amazing.
I feel tears in my eyes. This is profound, Martin. I'm feeling tears in my eyes. It's like, yeah, it's possible if we all join together.
Now, notice your language. It moved to it's possible. That's the purpose of the questions. So notice that where we are so far is it's possible. I know I've had one or more experiences in the past. I do know what heaven on earth is, but I didn't want to leave it there. And so working with this friend of mine, we came up with the third question. What simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours? I don't want to leave it as it, isn't this a wonderful idea, heaven on earth? No, that's lovely, but it's not sufficient for me. I want you to begin to take action so that it starts to show up. And you said, I'm going to sit down and look at my own narratives. I'm going to look at what's possible. I'm going to look at my intention. I'm going to look at the active steps that I'm going to take. Doing that from the consciousness of this is my direct contribution to heaven on earth, now you're in the game. Now you're actively having agency and exercising that agency to co-create and experience this is heaven on earth.
And you know, so many people dream, but they don't take action. There's a difference between dreaming and saying, because most of dreams are, well, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice if I could have this, if I could have that? But that but thing. And it doesn't have to be your whole life. It can be moments of delight, moments of joy, moments of that we can have throughout our lives if we choose and we allow that to happen.
So notice where you've moved as a result of the three questions. Not only has it moved from, and I don't think you shared this, but a part of you did, from my mother's thing about it's cursed, to, well, I don't really know, to, oh my God, it is possible, to this last conversation in which you're talking about moments of joy. You're engaging. So the three questions leave you at engaging with it, which is what I want you to do, to end up. And nowhere did I say what heaven on earth is. Nowhere.
Okay, then. This is quite exciting. So, things, the last time I interviewed you was 2018. I was looking at my emails from 28 and you came up in 2018. And the world has really changed in those 5 years. How do you feel that, do you feel that there's more possibility, people hold more possibility of the narrative? We had the pandemic, and that's, a lot of people say, well, that's been a change point for many people. They're really rethinking what their life is possible. When we think about this idea of heaven on earth, where do you feel that we are really going, as far as, do you see evidences of things moving?
So yes, I do. And let me give you some of that evidence. When I started this almost 4 decades ago, people were like, hey, what is he talking about? I would get the rolled eyes, or I'd get the, just excuse me for a second, they go to get a coffee and never come back. Over the years, I've seen a growth in the acceptance of this idea. One way is if you go into Google and put in the phrase, in quotes, heaven on earth, and the reason for quotes is so that the Google will only look for the intact phrase. 2020, 21, 22, 23, you'll see whoosh, it's skyrocketing. I think the reason it's skyrocketing is because people are so upset, sick of the current story. They see the unworkability, and it's just magnified, especially by most of the press, that they're much more willing to entertain an idea which was 30, 40 years ago ridiculous. Namely, we can have heaven on earth. It's bold. We've never done it before. But if you look at, the evolution of humanity, we've never done lots of stuff before. And I think, given the internet, especially, given the consciousness, the collective we consciousness of the planet now, little seeds, well, this is more than a seed. I'll give you more examples. It's starting to spread. People are going, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so we're back. Thank you very much. I have Martin Rutte, the author of Heaven on Earth.
Project. Actually,
project. It's a project. Oh yeah, I have the book too.
Did I ever do this with you? What's the title of the book? What do you see?
Project Heaven on Earth.
And the title is also Project Heaven on Earth.
Oh, project. Yes, yes, yes.
It's both.
It's both. So it is a project, and we are projecting the fact that it is possible.
Yes.
So thank you, Martin. So you were talking about Google and how in the beginning there was hardly anything relating to heaven on earth, and now it's like boomerang. Can you talk more about that?
Expanding, yes. So at the beginning, when I went and looked at Google, hardly anybody, and more the attitude of people, just dismissive, or let me get out of here. This guy's trying to proselytize a particular point of view. None of which was true for me. I mean, I wasn't proselytizing. I really was interested in seeing what the lay of the land was here. What are we talking about here? So, and over the years, if you put in, as I said, Google heaven on earth in quotation marks, you'll see how it goes up and up. And the reason is, I believe, not only my work, but many other people who've taken this and gone, yes, I see it. This is bold, and it is time to do this. So some more specific examples, from little ones all the way up to huge ones. Well, actually, they're all huge for the person. So there is a woman in Hawaii. I went to do a webinar, too used to COVID, an in-person seminar there. And she grows little microgreens. And she said, well, what can I do for heaven on earth? And I said, what do you do? Well, I grow little microgreens. Takes 10 days. I teach people how to do this, and they cut them and they grind them all up and drink them, very healthy. And I said, so what can you do? And we thought, and she said, at the bottom of each of her emails, she embeds her definition of heaven on earth. In essence, answering question number 2, here's a magic wand. With it, you can have heaven on earth. And she said, for me, heaven on earth is returning to the Garden of Eden.
Mm, mm.
And she then says, what's heaven on earth? She uses my second question. Imagine you have a magic wand, and with it, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth? She embeds that in her email. Then she tells people what her answer is. And that just goes out with every email. Simple. I have a woman in Mexico who smiles at 2 people a day. That's creating heaven on earth for her. A police officer in Lubbock, Texas, who's created a 16-page manual called Heaven on Earth for Law Enforcement. Because we were speaking one day and I said, Justin, what is heaven on earth for law enforcement? And without skipping a beat, he said, the end of crime and people helping each other. And
Wow.
that became his, a real estate agent who started a program in Halifax called A Home for Everyone, in which she asked the people in her agency, 10 people, homelessness, she turned white when she talked to me about homelessness. It was so deeply hurtful and painful to her heart and soul. So here she went back to her agency, said, look, we're going to end homelessness in Halifax. How? I'm asking you that for every home or building that you commercial building that you sell, you agree to have $50 taken off your commission check. That's all you have to do. They all said yes. Last I spoke to her, they'd raised over $400,000, and the program is called A Home for Everyone. So they're putting that idea into the space. A woman down the road, a couple of hours from Halifax in Lunenburg County, we were on a webinar talking about the sufferings in the world. And I said, Susan, is there a suffering? I'll tell you a suffering, Martin. Violence against women. I've been to the police. I've been to the government. Nothing. What would you do? I went, well, I don't know. I don't know your financial situation. You could donate a penny. You could donate $5,000. Well, what difference would a penny make? One of the other women on the phone call, Deanne, said, wait. What if everybody in your county donated a penny a day to help end violence against women? She went, oh my God. They started a program in which they handed out little mason jars with a picture of a woman, half her face beaten up, bruised, half her face bright, alive with the light coming out. The program is called Making Change. They ask people to donate a penny a day. You could donate more if you want, but a penny a day for an entire year. You could not put in $3.65 and say, okay, that's it. No, because she wanted that change in consciousness. A penny, a penny, a penny, a penny. People in the next county bought in as well. They raised $2,500 after 1 year. They took that result to a group in the Canadian government called Status of Women, who gave them, get this, $100,000 for each of the subsequent 3 years, a total of $300,000. Wherever she goes now, the first question people ask is, what can I do to help? To a woman in Austria, Elizabeth, who we were having a webinar, and she said, I know what it is, Martin. I said, well, what is it? Austria is a heaven on earth nation. I went, oh my God, what? How did you get that? Well, because it's simple. And she taught me that I don't know what your simple is, but you do. So it could be microgreens, it could be a penny a day, it could be taking on your nation. She took my book to the president. She's incredible what this woman is doing. Next level, a man from Gabon in Africa. I was doing a webinar and he said, that's it. I've been wanting to do something for my continent for years. And so he started a program called Africa, a Heaven on Earth Continent. I could go on and on and on, but you get the creativity that emerges here when people get not only that heaven on earth is possible, but that they can do something about it starting now.
This is really exciting. If I think about myself, and I just had a conversation with this consultant for my website, and he said, well, who are your people? I said, well, really, what's really important to me is we're talking about healing the trauma in the collective. And money is such a place of trauma that, and I've been working with the idea of money is stuck in this old paradigm, and it could be an agent for good.
Amen.
If we shift it to allowing it to be the expression of divine love in the marketplace. And if we allow it to be in this new paradigm of collaboration and generosity. And this is what we're talking about, is creating a new narrative where we are all together. We're not separate people. We're together. We're bonded. Our various brains are connected. That's science.
Yep.
What you're saying is, what can each person do? And some people it's a continent, and some people it's
Smiling.
It's microgreens, or it's smiling, and it doesn't matter. But it is the power of the collective.
Yes.
Collectively, when we hold a new narrative, we can change the world.
And that is so what is required today. We need to change the world. We need to have heaven on earth. We're at a fork in the road, as a futurist friend of mine says. We have to take one of the right roads now. So I know we only have a couple more minutes, so let me just talk a little bit more about my book, because in addition to asking those questions, the 3 questions that I ask you, which begins the book, I've discovered 7 gateways, personal gateways, collective gateways, ending a suffering, making an institution work. There are 7 powerful gateways that keep coming up over and over and over again. And so my book goes into what each of those is. So by the time you finished, it's not really a book, it's more like a workbook, a blueprint for heaven on. By the time you finished it, you'll know what your project is. And I'm going to ask you, it's on Amazon, go to Amazon, buy 3, 1 for you, 1 for somebody you love and know needs this, and 1 for somebody who's going to come into your life.
And when you read the book, I get really excited. It's one of my top books, so I get really excited because it does give you very specific ideas of, oh, this I could do this, or maybe this is it. And so talk about the 7. We have actually more time than you think. Talk about the 7 different gateways. Can you share that?
Sure, the gateways are inner. Some people think that inside, the more heaven on earth inside, the more it will show up.
Yeah.
Gateways of relationship with myself, with others, with the divine. A gateway of living a value like love, harmony, joy. There are people like my wife, hers is joy. She walks into a room, you are going to feel joy. That's her heaven on earth contribution. Ending a suffering, very important for many people. Ending a specific suffering. That's what's really interesting to Gale. What I notice is not just ending a suffering, it's ending a specific suffering, because there's a suffering in the world that hurts your soul. I'm not asking you to make it better, which is lovely, and many people are doing fabulous jobs in that. I'm talking about ending that particular suffering. So there's lots of examples in the book about people who've taken on the end of a suffering. That's very powerful for me. Institutions. What if the purpose of government, of law, of religion, of commerce, of medicine, of healthcare, what if the purpose of that institution was to help co-create heaven on earth? What would it do? The gateway of a nation, as I said, my friend in Austria, there are people who've taken on Dominica, a little country in the Caribbean, Austria, Denmark, Croatia, Hungary, who else? Mexico. So take on your country, make your country a heaven on earth country. And then another gateway is this here now. The belief that this is not heaven on earth is what keeps us is what prevents us from experiencing. So in that chapter on this here now, I ask people to just look, stop everything right now, and just get that this is heaven on earth. And you can do it that simply. So those are the 7 gateways, and the book goes into each one. It took me a long time to write the book because I had to find the ways into each gateway to have that gateway really blossom as a gateway into heaven on earth.
This is really exciting, because part of what you're saying is that when each of us connect to our divine mission, I think that we have soul's delight and heart's delight. And when they're connected, we are on our mission. And so everyone will know when they read the book, oh, that is where my gateway, this is my gateway. And so if we think about, this is this massive puzzle that all human beings are part of. And some people have the big picture, some people have a little piece of the puzzle,
yes.
but we all hold a piece of the puzzle. And so you can't create a puzzle without all the pieces.
Years ago, my wife and I had this kind of fight in which she said, look, you're out there in the world, you're talking about heaven on earth, you're making it, fabulous, it's moving, it's expanding globally. And she at the time was doing this volunteer group called Many Mothers. So when a woman has a child, she phones if she wants Many Mothers, and a volunteer comes over, and whatever the woman wants, wash the dishes, wash the floor, look after the other babies, go get my whatever the woman says, that's what the volunteer does. And Maida loved doing that. And she said, well, look what I'm doing. I said, no. They're exactly the same thing. The context is heaven on earth. The content's unique to you, unique to me. So when we think of the microgreen woman or the guy who's taken on Africa, they're the same thing. That's rare, very, very important. You can change the world in the simplest or most complex or whatever way that you go, oh, well, I can do that. I want you, the last question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take and be successful at to help co-create heaven on earth in the next 24 hours? Whatever that is that it is, do it, and then do something else the next day and the next day and the next day. That's how I've gotten to this point. After 4 decades, I just started with, I don't know what I'm doing. I just want to create heaven on earth. Good. What's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And so today it ends up in an interview podcast with Gale West.
Well, life is a series of steps.
Yes.
When we get stuck on what's it supposed to look like, and down here, that we get stuck in, how am I going to make it happen? How am I going to make it happen? Instead of, what step am I going to take today? And what step am I going to take today? And at the end of the day, just say, well, what one thing did I do to bring heaven on earth to myself and the world? Does it only take one?
That's such a beautiful question. What one thing did I do today? At the end of the day, what one thing did I do today to bring heaven on earth? I remember 3 years ago, I did a similar thing. I had to do 3 things a day, every day, and I had to write it down at the end of the day. And when you do that, it makes you look for it.
Mm-hmm. Because it's about, what are you focusing on? If you're focusing on how terrible the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and I'm really afraid, and blah, 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 that's what you're going to get. If you focus on, oh, what brought me joy today? What, and delight? What did I do that feels like I did something of service, that I've made the world a better place? 3 things, 1 thing, it doesn't matter. Just action. Because we are in the world of action. This is a world of form. Nothing's going to happen if you don't take action. But you have to believe, and you have to take action.
Now, we only have a couple of minutes left, but you actually, I contend, don't have to believe. You have to commit. You have to say, even though you don't believe it, I didn't believe at the beginning that heaven and earth was even possible, but it didn't matter. I said, I don't care about whether I believe or not. I'm in, because for some people, this is beyond belief. And so I don't want you to wait for the belief to come. I want you to take action now, and action and action, and start that momentum and watch what happens.
One of the things that I say is, you don't have to believe anything. You just have to suspend disbelief.
Even better.
Yeah. Just suspend disbelief that it's possible.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So how can people, so you talked about how people can get your book and to buy 3 of them. Hello. For you, 1 for your friend, and 1, yes, it's, I have it right here myself.
Project Heaven on Earth on Amazon.
Yeah, right.
You can
And
buy 3. Yep. It somebody's hijacked the site. We're going to change that. Actually, do you know what? Cut this out. I don't even want to say that. Buy 3. Go to my website, projectheavenonearth.com. You can sign up for a free 7-day course and start asking the 3 questions of people. The 3 questions are on the website as well. Start asking people the 3 questions every day and just start learning how the lay of the land is. Watch for those 7 gateways. Don't try to impose your gateway. I did a webinar once and one woman said, no, it's about love. And one guy said, no, it's about ending hunger. And they went like this. And I went, no, 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 it's not about fighting. If the woman is about love, then we all got to support her in getting more love in the world. If that particular guy is about ending hunger, then we've all got to support him to end hunger. So whatever people say heaven on earth is for them, assuming no evil, of course, support them.
so one of the things, the quote that I have from Wallace Wattles on the end of my email is that we must remember this is not a bad world, but a good world in the process of becoming. And what you're talking about is this is a process of becoming and allowing for a new narrative of heaven on earth.
Thank you, Gale. Yep, that's exactly what I'm saying.
And to not believe, can't
No,
believe.
you
Suspend
can't
disbelief. Suspend disbelief.
is
Yeah,
even
right. Any last words? Anything else that you'd love people to know about that we didn't cover?
This is the time. We really can't wait, and we're asking you to please become an agent of heaven on earth, and you can start that today. Hyper simply, that's the key here. We can do this, and we are doing this. There are many, many more examples in the book, and there are many more examples on the website of people who are actually taking this on. And notice when people start using the phrase heaven on earth. I have something called Google Alert, which is free from Google. And if you put the phrase in heaven on earth, you get a report every day about where the phrase heaven on earth shows up in English media globally. And it's just, it's growing. It's wonderful. So not only can we do this, we move from it's impossible, it can never be done, to, well, maybe, to it's possible, to we are doing it. I'll take one step, to, oh my God, we have momentum here, scale globally.
And from that moment in the green room where you had this aha, and what year was that? Do you remember? 80 something?
80 something, yeah.
Yeah.
86, something like that.
To today. How exciting.
It is.
Yeah, right.
My wife is interested. She said, you've done this talk millions of times and you never get bored with it. How could I get bored with it? I said, look what happens. Like Gale gave me you gave me some little insights today. Most of the time I hear the normal stuff, but almost every conversation, somebody will say a little tweak and I'll go, of course, I never thought of that. I never thought of that. And then I'll use that, like suspending disbelief. I'll use that.
Okay, you can borrow anything you want.
Thank you.
And really, if we're talking about changing the narrative from the world is going to hell in a handbasket, to the possibility that we together can create heaven on earth, and recognizing the power of the collective, of our collective thoughts, our collective narrative, and our collective stories.
And that new story is here and growing.
And that we can return back to the Garden of Eden.
Here.
And it's here.
Yep.
If we allow it.
If we suspend disbelief. I love that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Not if, and we suspend disbelief.
Right. Yeah. So my name is Gale West, and this is the Café of Delights. I've been talking to Martin Rutte, who is the author of Project and Project Heaven on Earth. 3 simple questions that will
help you change the world easily.
help you change the world easily. Thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you for tuning in to Café of Delights, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gale West. Listen or watch live every second and fourth Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com for a series of riveting interviews from those who are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. From science to spirituality, culture, arts, and new economies, and more, we will explore how to create a world where all can thrive. For more information on hope for a new reality, visit me, Gale West, at successwithsoul.com.